my name's Alicia, everyone. I'm the senior content producer here today at eCommerce Expo and Technology for Marketing. If you've got any kind of feedback, thoughts, feelings about any of the speakers, the editorial speakers that you've seen here today, by editorial I mean kind of like non-sponsored content in terms of speakers, come and have a chat to me, let me know what you think, give me some feedback. I'd love to hear what you think. Anyway, more importantly, we've got a very special guest with us today who will introduce himself very shortly, but we're going to be talking a little bit about creating a purpose-driven brand. So we're going to be learning a little bit more about the story of Too Good To Go and kind of where it came from, what made it successful, and kind of the challenges that kind of came up against Jamie and his team. So Jamie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, well, first off, thank you very much for having me here today. Pleasure to speak to you all. So I'm Jamie Crummie, I'm one of the co-founders of Too Good To Go, a social impact company which is all about fighting food waste. We do this through using technology, and we have like 3 key products, or core products. Our hero product is our marketplace, which connects individuals with businesses who have surplus food for sale. So this is our mobile app. It is available in 19 markets across 3 continents. We have a community of 160,000 different food businesses, ranging from cafes through to high street coffee chains, to retailers, and so on and so forth. And in this marketplace, we have rescued over 370 million meals from going to waste. Then we have launched our Too Good To Go platform, which is a B2B SaaS solution. It's a AI-powered modular solution whereby we work with retailers to help them to reduce food waste through their reduce to clear operations. And then our latest product, which we are currently rolling out across markets, is our Too Good To Go parcels offering. This is a direct-to-consumer offering whereby we work with manufacturers and food producers. We take this to a sorting facility, and then these parcels are then sent off to consumers straight to their doors. So we now have our sort of hands full with 3 new products which have just been launched in the last 12 months. But as a brand and as a business, it all centers around this mission for us, which is about dreaming of a planet of no food waste.
Cool, thank you. And just kind of, Jamie, taking a few kind of steps back a little bit, can you tell us a little bit about kind of the origin story of Too Good To Go? That makes it sound like a film or something, but the origin story of Too Good To Go, like kind of where it came from and how you and your team kind of ensured that it was successful.
Of course, yeah. So myself, I've always been someone who's been motivated by social and environmental impact. That's been my bread and butter, which has always pushed me into different areas across my career. But if we sort of go back as to how Too Good To Go all sort of came about, for myself, my introduction into food waste, it came when I was living out in Australia. So having studied law, having done a master's in human rights law, I was then working with different NGOs, and this brought me out to Australia. I was working for an NGO out there, but as a job on the side, I worked in the event space. This is when I first consciously experienced food waste. And I say consciously because we all subconsciously or perhaps consciously are throwing food away on a daily basis. But this is where I was very consciously having to throw food away. And there was vast amounts of food being wasted due to preparatory waste, overproduction, plate wastage, so on and so forth. And it was my role often to throw this food away. And this is a very visceral experience. It's not something you want to do, particularly after doing a 12-hour shift when you're pretty hungry. Mm-hmm. And so this is when the seed was planted, so to speak, of wanting to do something around food waste. And fast forward a little bit further, I was then working with an NGO where we had food which was catered for by people who rescue food from the bin. It was really, really exciting, really inspiring, but it got me thinking, how can we actually rescue this food before it hits the bin in the first place? And so I started a website which allowed individuals to rescue a meal from a local food business. And it was at this time I met my co-founders who are based in Copenhagen. I wanted to do something similar. And so we pooled our resources and built Too Good To Go. So that was the sort of the start of how Too Good To Go began, my flurry into food waste. So a big sort of segue from that legal space, but also very connected in the sense that it is all cemented in creating impact.
Yeah. And kind of diving into that kind of impact, purpose-driven side of things. So kind of taking into account what other brands are doing in kind of the purpose-driven, I know that's kind of like a thing in the purpose-driven world. What does it kind of mean to you to be purpose-driven?
When I talk about purpose in a business context, when I talk about it from a branding context, for us it really starts with what our vision is. You know, what is this greater cause? What is this greater why in which we're trying to address? And for us, it's like this northern star for ourselves is really this vision around dreaming of a planet of no food waste. So for us, this is what we are laser focused on trying to achieve, and this is how our branding, but also our operational strategy, it all ladders up to this vision itself. How can we rescue more food? How can we get to this planet with no food waste? And when we talk about these visions, they're often something which is super aspirational, right? So it's something which we're not going to achieve in the short term. You know, unfortunately, you know, a planet with no food waste is probably something we won't achieve in my lifetime. So from a branding perspective, building this purpose brand, it starts with this why. It starts with this vision, and it is something which is aspirational. You know, it's also something which is, you know, that multiple people can get behind. It's something which isn't self-serving.
Yeah.
So we're building a brand which is a purpose that anyone can get behind, whether that's internally or externally. And what I mean by this is that our vision, our purpose, isn't something which is building a certain commodity, let's say an app.
Yeah.
Because if it was, we would ostracize so many of our own employees who don't know how to build an app, or even so many of our consumers who don't know how to build an app either.
Yeah.
And so it is something which is inclusive in that aspect. And so when, you know, building this purpose-driven brand, building this purpose-driven strategy, it is something which is aspirational, but it's something which is inclusive within the sense that everybody can get behind. And then finally, that third ingredient is around really establishing something which was still relevant beyond technical advancements. And so what I mean by that is, you know, this whole purpose which we have of trying to address food waste doesn't become, you know, redundant when, you know, a new piece of technology comes out. But I think the final thing behind all of this is about authenticity. And for us, you know, we genuinely care. I mean, everybody would say that, wouldn't they? But you know, genuinely care about creating a positive impact. And as a brand, you know, we genuinely care about trying to empower people, provide solutions to address food waste, thus addressing climate change and trying to make society a better place as well.
Yeah, brilliant. And what were the kind of key challenges that you faced when you were trying to maintain the integrity of your kind of purpose-driven brand? So what challenges did you come up against when you were trying to align all your teams behind this purpose-driven piece?
Again, I think you know, zooming out for us, you know, when we started Too Good To Go, myself and my co-founders, it was very much about using business as a vehicle for positive change. You know, trying to align, you know, profit with people, planet, and purpose, and that becomes the foundation in which a brand gets built upon. But there's been countless amounts of challenges, and I was speaking to Alicia before we came on, and you know, when I cast my mind back to those early years of trying to get Too Good To Go off the ground, we as a startup, as a social impact business, we didn't have deep pockets. We were self-funded by myself and my co-founders. We had some grant funding and things like this, but we were bootstrapped, really, really bootstrapped. So it's about being creative and having to rely on things like PR to grow the demand side of our marketplace. And with this, it could have been very easy for us to segue away from our brand and segue away from our purpose, and talked about how Too Good To Go allows you to get, cheaper food, how it allows you to save money, and so on and so forth. But for us, that isn't, where our purpose is. Our purpose is centered on, fighting food waste. It's about, allowing individuals and consumers to do something which is good for their wallet, but it's also good for the planet, and it also makes them feel good. So it was centered around this triple win. And I think that was a big challenge for us, which was, let's stay true to the long term and what it is we're trying to achieve, rather than trying to take some shortcuts where perhaps we may have seen a few uplifts in those earlier days when it was hard to gain that traction by, let's say, pushing a message which wasn't authentic or true to ourselves, but could perhaps talk to some of our consumers about the benefits of our product solution.
And there's probably a few people in the room at the moment who are kind of wanting to build a kind of purpose-driven brand. Do you kind of have any practical tips for these people at all, or like watch outs or anything like that?
I think it goes back to what I started speaking about. If you're wanting to build a purpose-driven brand, it needs to be something in which you genuinely care about. So there is this level of authenticity, and this passion towards this greater cause becomes easy for you to articulate to your early hires, to your early clients, or to your early customers. And so that authenticity piece, that passion piece, I think really is something which is super integral. And I think again, it's about understanding, who your audience is. If I look back on Too Good To Go and look at how our brand has evolved from when we started in 2015 to where we are now, they're very different. The way we talk to our consumers, to our partners now, is somewhat more sophisticated than what it was back in 2015. But I call that as like it's a brand evolution. It isn't a brand revolution. So there is this common thread, which is stay true to who we are as a brand and who we are as an organization. But again, I think that's just normal with a brand. It's okay for those things to evolve. It's okay for those things to mature. But I think there still needs to be that common thread which ties it all together.
Yeah, totally. So, Jamie, I kind of want to dive a little bit into the CX side of things, if that's all right. So me and my partner, we're massive fans of Too Good To Go. We use
Love
it.
that.
We use it a lot. We use it weekly. But we're always like super impressed with the customer experience on the app specifically. But my question to you is, kind of what role does technology? Obviously, we're at the technology for marketing. What role does technology play in kind of delivering a seamless customer experience on the Too Good To Go platform?
Technology plays a huge role. I mean, there's no way about it. We are a organization which is a tech business, and what tech has allowed us to do is to create scale.
Yeah.
And by creating scale is where we can create impact, and where we create impact is where we stay true to our vision, to our mission, which is this planet of no food waste. So tech plays a instrumental role. And again, if we look back on how our CX of the app itself has evolved over these past 9 years, you probably wouldn't recognize it with how much those changes have come in. And when we look at why we have these these tweaks, these developments within our product itself. For us, a big part of this is about growing like a habitual nature amongst our consumer base. So it's trying to make it as simple and accessible as possible, so that rescuing a Too Good To Go surprise bag becomes, part of your habitual nature. And so that is where we're really trying to use technology to create even more tailored experiences to our consumers, but also making it even easier for our partners to upload food and add new items, etc. Onto their onto their profiles.
Yeah, that actually leads me perfectly into my next question. Was obviously you've got your B2C customers, and then you've obviously got your B2B customers. How do you kind of ensure that you're kind of providing a seamless customer experience to kind of both those very, very different customers?
Yes. Well, I think going back, there was one thing I just wanted to add on the CX part for the consumer side, and so there have been some new product developments which we've introduced over the past few months, and one of these has been around allowing friends to go and collect a surprise bag for you. So if you've got a friend, a family member, a housemate, whoever it might be, are living in a different part of town,
I do that all the time.
You can get them
with my
to rescue the surprise bag for you, which again is trying to use technology to build more inclusive environments, but to again increase that habitual nature.
Yeah.
And we've also now starting to roll out a loyalty program as well, which we're seeing is already driving greater engagement into the platform and developing more of that habitual nature as well. So then, like, leading on to your next question, it is hard. It is hard to grow a two-sided place marketplace where we're constantly having to grow supply and at the same time, engage and retain our consumers so that they want to keep fighting food waste with us. And when it comes to a CX part there, it's trying to remove as much friction as possible. So how can we make it easier for our partners to add more supply onto the app? Because ultimately we want them to rescue as much food as possible.
Yeah.
And similarly, how can we make it as much of a enjoyable experience for our consumers too?
Yeah, fantastic. Right, so I'm going to ask one more question, and then we're going to come to an audience Q&A. So if you've got any questions, just pop your hand up and we'll kind of come to you with the microphone. But my final question to you, Jamie, is with all your work over the past 9 years at Too Good To Go, what's kind of been your key, most proudest thing that's come out of the kind of Too Good To Go journey?
It's really hard, that question, isn't it? Like, what one single thing am I most proud of?
You can choose a couple if you want.
And I think the whole journey has been incredible. I think first and foremost, what myself and my co-founders are most proud of is we've developed a brand which genuinely inspires people and businesses to fight food waste together every single day. And we started Too Good To Go because we truly believed in the power of business to be used as a vehicle for positive change. We could have businesses which take environmental and social challenges and are then built to scale to keep addressing this, to give tangible solutions to people. And when we reflect back, there are countless milestones along the way which have helped us get there. 9 years ago, it was the first time, we had 100 meals saved in a single day. It was the first, 100 partners who joined the app. And as we've progressed and as the years have gone by, those milestones have slightly grown in terms of magnitude and numbers. But I think, reflecting back on all of that has been a huge, proud moment for us as a team, but also as a brand as well.
Yeah, Do you know how many tons you have saved from going into?
Sorry?
Do you know how many tons you have saved from going into landfill?
Yes,
Do you know?
so
You do?
it's 370,000 tons of food have been
Wow.
rescued via the Too Good To Go app.
That's fantastic. I think that's a great place to kind of end the session, isn't it? Does anyone have any questions? Yes, guys, can we get a mic over here if that's all right? 2 seconds, thank you.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
How have you dealt with the retention of...
Do you mind saying your name and just introducing what business you're from as well?
So my name's Stefan. I'm one of the co-founders of a software company within the health and fitness space. So I wanted to understand how you've dealt with retention of users whereby they have not been given the best experience by one of the businesses that uses Too Good To Go. Because it's something I experienced myself actually. I've used Too Good To Go twice. First time was great, second time what we got we weren't happy with it, and I haven't used it since. So how do you tackle that experience when it's not actually on you guys, it's with the businesses that you're working with?
That's a good question.
Okay, so if I understood that correctly, the question was around how do we address retention where consumer retention is sort of dwindled because of a bad customer experience. No, really, really good question, and it's interesting. You view that as things that are outside of our control. I would probably view some of that which is very much inside of our control. So it really stems from the importance of how our sales cycle works. So the importance of onboarding and training our partners. Because what could have happened is a new member of staff joined and didn't quite know what Too Good To Go was. So there is this huge importance around the way that we onboard and the way our sales cycles work, but as well in how we communicate with our stores too. So ensuring that there is constant touch points where they're able to re-engage with how the Too Good To Go process works. And all of our stores will have dedicated account managements on that. So if we have bad experience like this, it should hopefully flag up within our consumer ratings, which will then prompt a response from our team as well. And then I think the second stage of that is how do we reactivate consumers like yourselves who have had one great experience and then their second experience hasn't been brilliant. So there are some, things we can do from a CX point of view. So creating a curated view on what new consumers will see on the app versus what other potential users might. But also using things like our CRM to re-engage customers when there have been new types of stores that have been onboarded. So I think there are different ways in which we can address this. One, like the root sort of cause, which is around the sales cycle and account management. And then there are different sort of mechanisms in which we can do to re-engage those churned consumers.
Have you ever found yourself separating with a partner because they weren't delivering an appropriate service to the users?
Sorry, do you mind?
Have you ever found yourself separating with a partner because they weren't providing a satisfactory experience?
Yeah, really good question. Again, this is more probably on a case-by-case basis. If we have partners which are not using the app appropriately, then there will be partners which leave because it is in violation of our terms and conditions. But I think the main thing here is we want to build a community whereby we have stores which are joining Too Good To Go because they believe in what our vision is. And we can get by that, again, by going back to these things of onboarding the right types of stores, ensuring that our sales processes are correct, and that we bring businesses on board with the from the offset with the right mentality.
Thank you.
I think one thing I would add to that as well is obviously you have the reviewing system as well, don't you?
Yes.
Which obviously gives your partners the motivation to kind of do better, so then you're giving it kind of better reviews and all that kind of stuff, which obviously drives customer experience at the end of the day. So that's one thing I'd just add to the end. We have time for one more question down here at the front, if that's okay.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay. I'm Roshni. I'm actually a student and I'm studying about sustainable marketing. I just wanted to know that you have several businesses on board and some of them might be engaged in greenwashing or not as committed to being purpose-driven as you are as a brand. So how do you deal with such partners?
How do we deal with the notion of greenwashing amongst some of our potential partners? Well, for me, when I'm approached with something like this, it's around zooming out to the bigger picture. And I would say that we as a brand at Too Good To Go do not have that choice to be able to say whether one brand is worthy or not worthy to come onto the Too Good To Go platform based on the type of food that they may sell or based on some of their branding. You know, what we are is true to our mission, true to our vision, which is again, dreaming of this planet of no food waste. And as a result, that means that we don't discriminate with whatever business we work with, so long as they have a food waste issue which they need support with. And for me, it then becomes that your purpose is what guides you. And what I mean by that is then we will work with any business, irrespective of the food in which they sell or the location or whatever it might be, because we exist to try and help businesses reduce their food waste.
Cool.
Can I have a follow-up question?
Yeah, go for it.
So these brands who engage in greenwashing, do you think your consumers, B2C people, do they prefer brands who are more honest and purpose-driven comparatively to these other brands who are just doing it for the sake of it?
Well, when you're saying greenwashing, do you mean they're greenwashing on Too Good To Go? Or perhaps you could use an example.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know if I should say this out loud, but for instance, there are certain brands which kind of are not really committed to it, but they just want to get rid of their food or just be there because, it's good for marketing purposes, because I am into marketing, so I did a bit of research in certain brands who do that, like corporate wokeness or, greenwashing and stuff, where people are not really driven towards being sustainable enough, but they just want to be there to kind of change the perception of their brand to increase their profits rather than being more committed to sustainability.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, we have checks and balances in place to ensure that all of our partners, the food that they sell on the Too Good To Go marketplace is genuine food surplus. Then to your point on the motivations that businesses may join Too Good To Go, I have a different sort of challenge back to you then. Is it not your duty as a brand to be able to educate and inspire people to come on this journey with you? So maybe their motivation isn't something as authentic that you might be alluding to, but then as a business, can we not help them actually to understand the true impact in which they're doing by redistributing their food surplus? And as a result, you've inspired people to start thinking of things differently. So I think it's important for us to ensure that businesses that want to go on their sustainability journey, it's an inclusive space. Because I think far too many brands are scared of putting their hand up and saying we're doing this or doing that for the risk of being told that they're greenwashing. But as a result of not doing so, other brands aren't stepping up or doing things as well. So I think it can be a bit of a double-edged sword there. And what we need to do is create an environment in which it's okay for people to potentially screw up as a brand. But ultimately what we're asking is for organizations to try and do better.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lovely. Can we have a round of applause for Jamie, please? Lovely.